Now we will move to our next session. As global capability centers in India evolve from scale to strategic value creation, the role of talent, structure, and execution becomes critical. To share insights on this transformation, we have with us a leader who works closely with global enterprises to build and scale high impact GCCs in India. With over 20 years of leadership experience, including senior roles at Randstad India, he is recognized for designing and executing complex talent strategies at scale. Please welcome Mr. Sanjay Shetty, Chief Business Officer for Recruitment in GCC and International Services at Quest Corp. Over to you, sir. The mic is here. You want this?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Always nice to be in Hyderabad. I'm from Mumbai. I'm not going to talk too much about Quest. We have a stall outside and I invite you to visit there. So since I was in Hyderabad, I had the opportunity to connect with some of my classmates who are from all over the world and the ones who were based in Hyderabad. It was really nice when we were talking about how the city has evolved over the last 2 decades. Technology, GCC, has played a huge role in that. Conversations were all nice and fine until the topic came about biryani. And that's when we had colleagues from Delhi, we had colleagues from Mumbai, and of course, we had locals. And then the debate went on about should there be aloo in the biryani or not. And then of course, we had to change the topic before it got explosive. But coming back, fantastic, sessions, and I was just thinking, with so much of information that has already been shared by all the esteemed speakers from the corporate world, from the government, and also so nice to see the startups, what value could I possibly add? We decided to focus on GCC. That is clearly the flavor, I would say, for the past couple of decades, and I would say for the next couple of decades. Quest does a lot of work for the GCC space, and we decided to share our experiences. There are some slides, but I promise it's not going to be death by PPT. A little bit more of sharing some experiences, because I've had the opportunity to recruit for this sector over 25 years. I've had the opportunity to see the talent and the ecosystem around it evolve. So this presentation is going to be more about what's the journey been like from the GCC perspective and where do we think this sector is going. Oops. Okay, quick story. So 2 images there. The image on the left-hand side is a building in Malad, Mindspace. So people from Mumbai or people who visit Mumbai might be able to relate to this. This was one of the first centers for GCC in the western part of the country. You had a lot of GCCs who set up their operation in Malad way back in 98, 99. And we used to do a lot of hiring for companies there. And during one of the drives, recruitment drives that we had, I was going in the auto. This is of course pre-metro days and all of that, to one of the offices. And it was actually late in the evening. And the auto guys, I was just paying him and, going, and he said, "Sir, a question hai, agar aap buran to na mano." I said, "Haan, kya hai? What is it?" Surprised, like, what does he want to know? He said, "Sir," and this is, I'm talking about sometime in 99, by the way. So he said, "Sir, ye kaam kya karte hai? Idhar ladki log, suit woot pehen ke aate hai, bag leke jate hai raat ko, ye kya kaam hai?" So I was very intrigued, right? And so just imagine the curiosity. So again, for a lot of people who may not have been part of this sector, those years may not be able to relate to this, but this was so different, working in night shifts. Some people used to call it graveyard shifts. You have different terms for it. And I actually had to explain to him, that, hey, we're doing work from India, from this place here, for customers in Europe. I use the word foreign to make it easy for him to understand. And when you look at the way the industry has evolved over the last 25 years, right? And that's what it takes me back to that story where that innocent question, where people, I mean, so many, I remember just, I'm taking the liberty, again, during those years, in our office, we had, parents who came to our office, and my colleague said, hey, this candidate's parents have come to meet you. I said, what happened, right? Something happened. They said, no, they want to know where are you sending their son in the night for this job? What kind of job is this, right? And it's so funny and fascinating, right? When you see some of these stories, and I'm sure all the people in this audience would have so many of these kind of stories. I mean, you have built this sector, and this sector has not happened, overnight. And, those are the people who joined as, those days they were called agents, data executives, who are now delivery leaders, who are now CEOs, who are now COOs. So I just, took the liberty of sharing that. Okay. A little bit more information on the GCC ecosystem. About 1,800 GCCs in the country. And I know, so disclaimer, a lot of the information is fairly already available. But quick, 1,800 GCCs, 1,900 organizations use GCCs in India. Bangalore is, of course, leading the pack. Hyderabad, close second. Then we have Delhi NCR, Mumbai, Pune, Chennai. And then we have it distributed amongst the other cities. But this is the lay of the land. And of course, not to forget, the emerging destinations, the tier 2 cities, not emerging anymore. I mean, we've got locations like Jaipur, which have been seeing GCCs for the last 15 to 18 years. But specifically, Coimbatore, Ahmedabad, Bhubaneswar, Trivandrum, Indore, these are all emerging destinations. And I'm sure most of you know that they're growing much more faster than the ones in the metros. Just in the last 2 years, we've had 220 GCCs that were set up. Last year alone, 90 plus. From a revenue perspective, from 65 billion to about 100 billion by 2030. From a sector mix, if you look at the pie, the pizza slice, IT products and services and retail are the biggest, 24 and 22%, and the others are fairly equitable if you look at it from a sector perspective. Yeah. Okay. I was talking about the evolution. So we broken it down into 5 stages. If you look at the first stage, I mean, companies like Texas Instrument, they set it up way back in the 80s. Then you had, I mean, those days, they were more about, captive back offices. Cost arbitrage was a key reason. Then if you look at the early 2000s, actually before that, in the mid-90s, you had the GEs and the Amex who set up in Gurgaon. Interestingly, it was the airline industry which was one of the first proponents of the GCC space. You had a company called AFS, which was the back office for Swiss Air, which set up way back in 1997. You had British Airways that set up a global back office called WNS in 1999 in Mumbai. And we hired the first 3,000 people for them. It was actually my first project. So, that was the second stage where then you started moving up the value chain, where it became more about back office, customer care, functions. Then you had the GICs where they started to, move into R&D, manufacturing, into e-commerce. So they started diversifying into other sectors. Then, now you're looking at the evolution and the transformation. If you look at 2013 to 2023, you had things like digitization, automation, cloud, IoT. It started becoming more into what we all now know as innovation, right? So there was a clear progression from, okay, India is an economic place to do work from, to, okay, the innovation is coming out of India. And 2023 onwards, of course, is where we are seeing now the entire GCC sector completely evolve from innovation to being transformation hubs, right? And what we wanted to show is how the industries evolved over the last 20 to 25 odd years, and we've still got a long way to go. And again, just like I was discussing with one of the guests in the morning, it's no more about, if India, it's a question of when India. So if you're not already here, you need to get here. Of course, I also think it's important not to be complacent. We have a competition from countries like Philippines, from Vietnam. We always had, in fact, Philippines is a fairly mature destination, even 25 years ago. India has picked up pace over the last 25 years, but it's important to make sure, and just like the gentleman, Mr. Ranjan from the government was talking about, the digital divide, so in terms of infrastructure development, because if you want to move to the second tier, the smaller cities, so is the infrastructure ready? Is the talent ready? Is the education system ready? Otherwise, what happens, and we all know, you land up, concentrating in a few of these cities, which is, and there are, goods and bads about it. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the transformation, right? This is an extension of the previous slide, the then and the now. We spoke about GCCs moving from cost centers to strategic hubs. We spoke about, GCCs in the late 90s, where they were back office support hubs, so back office accounts, back office HR, all of that. Now, moving more to core to business, right? So that's a big change. Isolated, more, upstream, limited involvement. And today we talk about, and a lot of the gentlemen earlier spoke about integrated technology, R&D, which is so critical. The projects earlier were more fixed, they were fixed scope for a particular timeline. But today, we see more of a life cycle management, a more agile life cycle management system. So it's no more limited to a particular timeline, no more limited to a particular project. So it's more, long-term, and it contains the entire life cycle of an organization. Especially if you look at what's happening in the socio-economic, global changes of, changes that are happening all around the world, where there is a, a race for profit maximization, margin expansion, looking for new ways of business process re-engineering. Here again, all the roads, and I don't mean to be arrogant, but all the roads somewhere lead to India. Localized, what this basically means is, if you remember earlier, it was more baby steps. Okay, let's start with US, or let's start with UK, let's start with one country. I'm talking about the global corporations. Let's scale it up. It seemed very logical. But I think we've moved up the value chain, the learning curve, we've come up, and now organizations from day one, interestingly, they're talking about global centers. I'm sure everybody's read about recently the L'Oreal, operation. So whether it's a L'Oreal, whether it's a McDonald's, all of them, they're looking at India not from a region specific to serve one part of the region, but looking at India becoming a global hub. And that's a big change, because earlier what would happen is there was a gestation period by the time you moved from Europe, North America, APAC, and then you go global, because then you have to land up relocating some of the other centers. So I think corporations are becoming more bold because the proof of concept is already there. Okay. Can someone help me? Okay. Sorry, technology sometimes is your friend, as somebody already said, and sometimes is not your friend, but we all do what we say, jugaad in Mumbai. Beyond talent, so one is, and again, very cliched, but it is clear that today India, and GCC is a great example of that, has become the knowledge hub. We've broken it down into, 5 odd, pillars. If you look at the, topic of research, data, just some figures, the digital GDP is projected to be 1 trillion in 2025, right? That's the year gone by. And this is obviously this is for India. If you look at AI, poised to add $900 odd billion by 2035, right? So that's a huge opportunity. And again, it's for the GCCs, it's for the startups, it's the entire ecosystem that is going to contribute. India contributes to 28% of the global STEM workforce and about 23% of the software engineering talent. Again, most of you are already aware of this, but very, very important as we plan our future GCC operations, global expansion plans. But there is a lot of updation, there's a lot of work that's been happening, even with NASSCOM, in terms of reorganizing the education system, penetrating the education system with technology, AI earlier on. I mean, a lot of us, when we studied, obviously, learning MS Office computers came very, very late in the system. But all of that is changing, and that will have a direct correlation to the, mainstreaming of talent for workforces like technology and GCC. Rise of GCs in India, already spoken about this, 1,800 plus, poised to grow to about 2,000 in the next couple of years, revenue to grow to 100 billion by 2030. We attract, when I say we, I'm talking about the GCC, the top 1% of talent, and that's very, very important. This used to not happen maybe 15 to 18 years back, but today, GCCs attract the top 1% of talent across financial services, R&D, pharma, retail. Contribution to global innovation. I mean, we've had distinguished guests from companies like Lloyds and all of that speak earlier. And again, these are all examples which are connected. You have a lot of global innovation that is happening from India. It's no more supporting the mothership, but the innovation is happening here. GCCs now co-own global technology. So it's no more a support system, and that's very, very important. Interesting, over 55%, and from our data, of GCC revenue already comes from R&D and product development. Growth of GCCs and from an R&D hub perspective, growth rate of 11 to 12%, easily poised to grow at 15% with headquarter alignment, and there is a lot of support coming in from the headquarters of all these corporations, whether they're FMCG companies, financial services companies, retail companies. In terms of exports, again, 100 billion by 2030. Talent base, very important for us as a topic, poised to grow from 1.9 million to 2.8 million by 2030. And again, seems very simple, but then you have to keep in mind the number of graduates that get churned out. There's also, by the way, a talent war, which is talent export that is going to happen. So there's a lot of regulation that are changing. You're seeing the EU deal with India. You'll also see a corridor happening with India, Japan, India, EU, all of that, which means the talent war is not just within the country, it is going to be inter-country, where countries will fight for their talent. Of course, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Gurugram, Chennai, these are all the mature hubs. From an R&D hub perspective, we rank top 5 globally. When I say we, I'm talking about India, obviously. In AI, biotech, patented, and of course, Hyderabad would know better than most people. Scientific publications, deep tech focus, AI, fintech, health tech, almost 20 to 25% of the roles, and this is very interesting, and earlier in the panel discussion, we were talking about AI, digital automation. So 20 to 25% of the roles are moving to a digital format, and we see that going to about 40 to 50% in the next couple of years. So obviously, GCCs are going to be on the forefront of digitization and automation. What are some of the key drivers behind India's GCC boom? The gentleman before me, Mr. Ranjan sir, from the government made my life easier. He spoke about some of the initiatives, but some of the things that are happening, right? It's a busy slide, but we wanted to make it sound like the puzzle is coming together. So top left-hand side, 30 plus international airports, very important connectivity. When you look at global colleagues flying down from different countries, so connectivity is very, very important, and that makes a big difference when you compare it to maybe 10 to 15 years ago, and you have more airports that are being built. In terms of startups, we have almost 159,000 startups, contributing significantly, and almost every government has the startup fund that is allocated. Nobody wants to be left behind. Transparent pricing, a lot of expectations the next few days from the budget. Let's see what's in store for this part of the world. 80% of India's population has 5G access. Very, very important. Also, interestingly, almost half of our population is doing transactions digitally. Half, right? I mean, we are possibly the only country, even now, and I'm sure it's the same with you, we have expatriate colleagues who are always pleasantly surprised when they see a hawker who's got that QR code and where you do the UPI transaction, and that is something that we've really taken a step forward compared to many other developed countries. Education system, Mr. Ranjan already spoke about it, so I'll not go into that. The semiconductor mission, there is so much happening with chips. Gig workforce, we're about close to 12 to 14 million workforce today. that is poised to double in the next couple of years, almost 23 million by 2030. Very quickly, some of the state GCC policies, that are fueling this. Karnataka, one of the first states to roll the GCC policy in 2024. It's a 5-year policy. Their focus is about 500 GCCs. Telangana, 100 GCCs by 2026. Technology from a science perspective, medtech is very, very key. Just yesterday, I met a customer, very interesting. They're into healthcare technology for athletes. So a lot of the work that they do is they pick up signals from your handheld devices and they upload that, which helps you plan your marathon. So very interesting, cutting-edge work is happening out of India. Gujarat, Gift City, subsidies up to 200 crore. I'm sure most people know that they have a very interesting, system of subsidy that for people who stay back in a company for more than 1 year. For females, there's a incentive of 60,000 rupees, and for males, it's 50,000 rupees. So the government is really, coming out, all guns blazing, supporting this sector, which is very, very welcome. Tamil Nadu, 50,000 jobs in the next 3 years. Their target is to get to about 450 GCCs by 2030. Tier 2 hub model, what that basically means is Tamil Nadu is very clearly focusing on building some of the smaller districts and towns into talent and GCC hubs for them, and they have a plan behind it. We've had meetings with the government. Maharashtra, again, recently you would have seen that there's a GCC policy rolled out by the government of Maharashtra. Interestingly, they also have an international placement cell, which is focused on exporting talent, both Maharashtra and the UP government. And last but not the least, UP, targeting 1,000 crores from GCC, or 5 lakh jobs in the next couple of years. And of course, a lot of incentives for talent to stay in UP. Very quickly, because I know I'm out of time, we want to just make a quick comparison between Tier 2 or the emerging hubs and the metros. And what we see is the momentum is growing in the metro, in the Tier 2 cities, almost 5 to 7% faster. The capabilities are fairly similar, actually. There's not too much difference. Of course, when you look at leadership availability, there is a difference. We see more, a deeper bench of senior talent, especially technical R&D talent in the metro cities, as compared to limited talent and leadership talent in the second-tier cities. And this is important as we look at expanding into the smaller towns and cities in the country. Strategic maturity, again, what we see is metros are more, from an execution, product ownership perspective, whereas the smaller, Tier 2 cities are more focused on execution, and when I say execution, more specialized activities. So they're catching up, and also the mid-market companies are coming more into the Tier 2 cities. We're out of time? Okay. So ma'am says we're out of time. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and wish you a great session ahead. Thank you.
I'll call Mr. Senthil to please felicitate Mr. Shetty. Thank you for such great insights, Mr. Shetty. And since Gift City was mentioned, so I cannot hold back, but we also have Gift City. At Gift City, we also have AI Center of Excellence. So anyone who comes to Gujarat is more than welcome to come to our center.